So good evening and welcome to BC Cattlemen's Public Affairs and Education Committee's Coffee Shop Talk, a webinar series. We're currently chiming into the fifth of 6 webinars, and before we dive into tonight's topic, I'd like to cover who BC Cattlemen's is, our project funders, introduce our speaker, and cover some housekeeping items. So the BC Cattlemen's Association has been representing ranchers since 1929. So for over 90 years, we have been the official voice for BC ranchers. As one of the association's committees, the Public Affairs and Education Committee has created a webinar series. It started in January of 2019 and goes till June of 2019, covering 6 different unique topics: mental health, succession planning, employee management, employee retention, mentorship, and financial management. All of this can be found on our website at www.cattlemen.bc.ca/coffeeshoptalks.htm, or by calling the office at 1-877-688-2333. So this webinar series was funded in part by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and the Government of BC through programs delivered by Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC and the BC Cattlemen's Association. So before we jump into mentorship, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Bree Patterson with the BC Cattlemen's Association, the Beef Production Specialist, and the staff support for the Public Affairs and Education Committee, so I get to be your lovely host. This is a recorded webinar, so there will be recordings saved to our website and our YouTube channel for future reference. All of the listeners will be in listen-only mode, so that you'll be muted, you can't speak. That way it's easier for you to hear the speakers. And at the end, we'll be allocating about 10 minutes to questions. And at that point, you can shoot them through the chat box, which is on your right-hand side of the screen, to the participant named Bree, and I'll read them aloud. So that's our housekeeping items, and we're ready to jump in. So tonight's guest is Sandy Russell from Spring Creek Land and Cattle Consulting in Outlook, Saskatchewan. Welcome, Sandy. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Bree. I would love to. And first off, thank you for having me. It's I've been really looking forward to this and hopefully have a good discussion tonight about mentorship and about how mentorship can help all kinds of individuals that even, I consider myself still being mentored in the industry. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's discussion. Like we said, I'm from Outlook, Saskatchewan. I grew up 3 miles down the road from where my office sits today. We are involved in the family ranch here in Saskatchewan, but I also run a consulting business with 2 other partners in my company, and we consult mainly to the beef industry, but to the agriculture sector as a whole, and on various topics, research. I'm an economist by training, a beef economist, so I do a lot of work in cattle markets, in how to improve your ranching financial standing in terms of better business management and all those different aspects of the ranch business in Western Canada, in Canada, and even into the US as well. So I have spent my life in the industry, and through that have fallen, I really do say it's fallen into mentorship, more by means of I thought this was such a great experience and such a great opportunity to something I wish I'd had when I started in the industry. So mentorship really was not something that I'm an expert in, but something I've taken a lot of interest in and spent a lot of time in. So once again, Bree, thanks for having me tonight. I look forward to our discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Sandy, for being part of it. And one of the cool things about this topic is Sandy happens to be my current mentor with the Cattlemen's Young Leaders program that is brought to you by Canadian Cattlemen's Association. So we'll definitely touch base on that in a bit. But if you're ready, Sandy, I've got some questions from the committee and I'm happy to jump into them.
Let's get to it, Bree.
Excellent. So the first question the committee had was, where do you find mentors? Are they just like lurking in your bale yard, or how do you find a mentor, and how do you get connected with a mentor?
Well, and I think, there's a lot of different ways to find a mentor, and Bree's heard this from me many times, and I truly believe mentorship happens very informally at times, but also can be very formal. And there's some great programs. Bree talked about how her and I became connected through the Cattlemen's Young Leaders program, which is a phenomenal program. And more we're seeing throughout the ag commodities, throughout business as a whole, the recognition that mentorship is so important and formalizing it, that we're seeing more and more programs. And I get the calls from different commodities now to say, oh, you've been involved in a mentorship program. Can you help us set up one? So there is more and more opportunity to engage in those formal programs. And I urge both those with experience and those who see they could be a mentor to seek them out, but also if you're young and in the industry and wanting to learn, which I think not just the young, but all of us are, seek it out. There's so much opportunity right now through these programs, through, like I said, of course, Bree and I are big proponents of the Cattlemen's Young Leaders, but through programs like that. But then not just the formal piece. There are so many mentors, often they're next door to you, they're down the road, they're in your industry, in your province. Get engaged, get involved. A lot of the provincial associations are starting up some mentorship programs. So don't be too shy. And as someone who was shy back in the day and still is a little shy, I'd say, take that step, take that initiative to go out and seek those mentors, because there's so much to gain from connecting with people and connecting with others who maybe you see as someone you would like to learn from. 99.9% of the time, those people are open to sharing with you. And if I know, people in this industry, I've never had anyone turn me down in terms of saying, I'd like to learn something from you. Can I spare a few moments? And that opens a whole door. So there's lots of opportunities to step out and reach out to your BC cattlemen's, reach out to your provincial associations, because they can help connect you with people that may have the expertise in the areas where you would like to build some skill sets.
I think it's a really good point, and a good point that it doesn't have to be a formal program like the Cattlemen's Young Leaders program. However, obviously, we're both partial to that one. I remember years ago when I was first starting out to do agronomic advising, I had a mentor who was very informal. It was just another coworker who took me under his wing and kind of helped me work through various different concerns or issues I had as I was learning agronomy, because my background was actually animal science. So that was a great example of a very informal mentor that helped me grow as an individual and get to where I was at that point. So I agree with you, where sometimes it's not just these programs, it's literally just asking someone if they know something a little bit more about a topic you want to learn.
Exactly. And as I look back on my own learning through the past 20 years as I've been in this industry, a lot of that mentorship happened from looking at people and seeing, I really like what that person's doing. I would like to learn more in this area, and I'd seek out that opportunity to connect with that person. So your interests lead you to your mentors. I often say that, right? Where you want to be will lead you to those people who can help you build the skill sets and the expertise. And, I look back on my education, more formal, those were key mentors. But then as I started my career and you find people who are experts in the field where you feel maybe your skill set lacks, and I had a lot of that, you build that connection and you build that network. So it's not always formal. Don't think it has to be, but formal is great too, because it opens up a lot of opportunities and doors for learning that informal mentorship doesn't always have.
That's true. And so another question the committee had was, so we know these programs, we know we can go out and ask people, hey, will you be my mentor? How do you decide you want to be a mentor? How do you become a mentor? What spurs you on to want to do that or give back?
Well, and I think probably if you ask somebody like 10 years ago, do you think Sandy would get into mentorship? Someone that knew me would say, what? No way. So that's a really good question. I appreciate the committee asking it, because it's something I think if you fundamentally believe in lifelong learning, you fundamentally believe in mentorship, whether that's being a mentor or being a mentee. And I still think of myself in many ways as a mentee. And Bree's going to get sick of hearing a lot of the same things I tell her over and over again. But one of the things is, I think I learn more from being a mentor than I probably give to my mentees in the formal mentorship programs I've been involved in, because I really find the doors open. You open to a whole new network of young, innovative thinkers. BC. I didn't have a lot of network in BC, and Bree opened that door to me because it was an opportunity to mentor Bree, and that was a more formal program. But that being said, I think I always say to people, if you're interested in learning, if you're interested in, just because you might be a little older, share your learning and you'll get more back than you give. And that really is how I see it. How do you, I mean, if you want to learn and be engaged with youth and kind of a different, open that box, because as you get to be to a different stage of your career, you sometimes become a bit more in your box. And I'm always like to push the box open a bit. Explore the opportunities to mentor. And that, again, not necessarily formal, informal. Find those youth, those young people in your area, and open up the doors of communication. And that in itself is mentoring. So it doesn't have to be, hi, I'm here and I want to mentor you. It can be, introducing yourself, sharing some of your experiences, because we all know experience is what creates learning. And while we have more time under our belts, we may have some more learnings, but youth have a different perspective as well that can bring value to your operation, to your business, to whatever you're trying to do. So I always say, open yourself up to communication. When you see, if you're at a branding or at a meeting or wherever you are, and you see that group of young people, go out and introduce yourself. They often are more intimidated by us than we are of them sometimes, because I can relate. I can still remember being young. That sometimes is a hard step to take. So, and I mean, we as a company have always fundamentally believed in giving back in youth. We're very close to our university here, the University of Saskatchewan, which is our alma mater, so we'll always promote it. And we engage in teaching and engage in the youth there. And then, of course, through mentorship programs that we've engaged in, we have seen true value come back as those people become leaders in the industry. And that just builds your network and builds value to your business. So there's tons of potential to become mentors in many different ways.
No, that's awesome. And it actually leads naturally into our next question from the committee is talking about mentorship as something to put in place on your ranch or ag operation, or is it something you already have, like it's already part of it? Like, should you, as you're building your ranch or building your ag operation, should you consider mentorship as one portion the same way you consider HR or what fertility you're going to put in your fields or what your breeding program is, or is it something that you want to think about like years down the road?
I think from day one, the sooner you think about it, the more value you capture from it. But also, I think if you step back, many people, and I know this in myself as I got more engaged, and it became until 2010, 2011, where I really became involved in the formal side of mentorship. But it was happening before then. I just didn't identify it. And I think if people step back and look at their businesses or look at their careers or look at their education, there's been mentors throughout that they've had. And I think if you put a focus on it, you get even more value out of it. So I think from day one, when you start a business strategy, education plan, whatever it is, think about your mentorship and how you want to engage mentors, how you want to be involved in that. Also, if you're a successful business, how can mentorship add value to your mentor, to your operation by being a mentor, right? And I've talked about how I think there's huge value there. I don't think it's really, you put it as one section, like HR is here and mentorship is here and financial planning is here. Mentorship is through all of it. It really is that overarching umbrella that I see that, as I look at my businesses, and there's multiple, and where I need to improve or build my skill set, even today, 20 years in, who should I seek out as potential mentors? Who should I seek out to help me build the skill set so I find experts in the areas I want to build my skill set in? and I try to connect with that. And I think that is something that everybody, whether it's in ranching or education or anything, right, you should really pay some attention to, because if you're a bit more strategic than I was about it, you'll get a lot more value, capture more value out of it, and be able to be really focused on finding that skill set and building it and connecting with a huge network, which is really what mentorship does open up for you.
Totally. I know the committee had another question about should you be looking at a mentor that's strictly in your own commodity or your own industry, or should you be looking at other kinds of mentors? So maybe you look at a financial mentor. So maybe you phone up a banker who's really good at numbers and you build that mentorship with them so they can teach you how to like take much easier and much better care of your bookkeeping. Or do you just like solely focus on, I'm a beef producer, so I want to find another beef producer as my mentor who might actually not really be good at books, but they're really good at genetics.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's value in finding those people in your skill set, in the field you want to build. And there is a, you know, when it comes to some skills you want to build, you know, you don't want to go down the road to a car salesman when you're trying to build a ranch. But that being said, I do think there's huge value in expanding your network and expanding the skill set you have. And so often, I'm going to generalize, so please excuse me because I'm going to put ranchers in a box for a minute. But as ranchers, we typically are very strong in our production. We don't, I've said this so many times, we don't decide we want to become ranchers because we love sitting behind a desk and doing books and calculating figures and figuring out how to pay the bills. We become ranchers because we love being outside, we love being with cattle, we love working cattle. And so that usually is our strong skill set, and our weak one is more the behind the desk stuff.
Yeah.
I always say, if you want to really capture value in mentorship, find your weaknesses, go out and find people who are strong in the areas you're weak. Find your polar opposites, right? They will help push your limits. They will help teach you and help build that skill set where you need your work. And trust me, I know it's the hardest thing to say, okay, here's my weaknesses. We're going to write them down and admit them. It's not always an easy thing to do. No. But that being said, it usually makes for a stronger, more successful person business as you build that network in areas outside of your comfort zone. So yes, I think it's important to have someone who's, you know, in the same industry as you, but those are usually easier to find mentors. It's the mentors that are a bit outside of our comfort zone and outside of our skill set that sometimes are hard. And that's where sometimes the more formal programs come into place, because they can help connect you with people you might not even be able to think of yourself in terms of building that skill set where your weaknesses lie.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to have that external source look in and go, oh, Bree, you're struggling with your finances, so maybe if we put you in this more structured, traditional type mentorship program, we'll be able to find you someone who's really good at numbers and help you with that, versus me going, do I phone a banker? Do I phone an accountant? Do I just ask my neighbor who has QuickBooks to show me how to use it? How do I handle that? Because you know, it's not my strong suit by any means.
And keep in mind, many of these programs take, I mean, you've been through a selection. They look at kind of your skill set and what you want to do. And a whole selection committee is sitting there thinking, who's the best person for this mentee? Which is something, you know, you wouldn't be able to have access to. That's really the sales pitch for some of these more formal programs, because you gain that expertise and a group of people sitting down and looking at you very with no biases, right? So looking at you and looking at what you say you want to become and saying, oh, have we got the person for you, right? And opening opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have ever dreamed of.
Totally. I think it's nice to have those selection groups as well, where they'll think of someone who you wouldn't have thought of, and then you get paired with that person going, I'm not sure if that was the right person to pair me with, and then you realize, oh, actually they were the right person, and this selection committee actually had a better insight than what you did, because you had your perceived parameters going, I just want this, this, and this, but person B, who I've been paired with, only has X, Y, and Z, and that doesn't seem to match up. And then you start meeting with that person and getting to know them and realize, actually, you've got exactly what I need.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that different perspective that sometimes when we come looking at our own, life and what we want to achieve, we can't have that perspective sometimes from the outside looking in. So.
Totally, yeah, no, it definitely helps. So one of the other questions the committee had was, how do you select a mentor that can help you minimize your stress levels and concerns? So should we be putting ourselves into these more formal ones and expressing that we're looking for help to minimize or help manage our stress levels when it comes to, the change in markets or weather patterns we can't handle or anything like that? Or do we find maybe with a mentor like that, we need to look into like maybe more of a mental health type professional or something like that?
I think there's room for both. And I think part of it is recognizing when stress is hitting you and when that discomfort and that concern is rising, and reaching out to the people you need to reach out to, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very hard thing to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it like it's easy. It is a very, very difficult thing, because when you're embedded in that stress, that's why if you have the mentorship set up prior to that even hitting,
right.
It's so important to have mentors in your life, period, quite frankly, because they see that, right? They're involved in your business, they're involved from a personal level, they're engaged in you, and they can recognize sometimes before we even recognize the stress that's hitting us and the concerns we're dealing with. So that would be my first kind of promo for having mentors in your life and engaging those people right from day one. Don't wait till the stress hits and say, oh, I need to get a mentor, right? That's, I think, really key. But I do think it's important to have multiple mentors in your life. No one expert or person can deal with all different facets. And we know ranching is an extremely stressful business at times. And anything in agriculture and weather dependent, as I sit here and look at the lack of rainfall we're dealing with and the drought that's hitting much of Western Canada right now in my area, stress levels are running higher and higher by the day. And so I fully recognize that the different expertise and level of mentors you need in your life in this business, it's vast. It's vast. And so you need to engage both the formal program type people from the business perspective who can crunch that number and help you deal with the financial aspects and help set your business up for success. But then there's the mental health side and the personal side, and everybody deals with stress differently, and you need to have that group of people to pull on that can help you get through those stresses, because it's not just setting your business up. We know this is a family thing, this is a lifestyle, this is you don't go into the house at the end of the day at 5 o'clock and turn off the ranch. It's there 24/7. And so it's important that you have that network of people who can help you. And that's where the experience of some older people, and I might even contradict myself, Bree, it's not the first time, but as you look back and having some people within the field you're dealing with, having some people who've been through, as I look at some of the challenges the industry faces, who've been there, who've dealt with some of the challenges, who can hear your concerns, who can say, I know, I've been there. I've struggled to make payments. I've struggled to deal with the banker at the door. I've struggled to deal with production losses. I've struggled with these things. You will come through this, and I came through it, all that, right? That's important to have someone who can relate to what you're actually dealing with within the industry. So I think it's important to have a vast network of mentors. And again, I go back to, I think many people, as they look back on their careers and on their businesses, they have built up that network of mentors, successful people have. So if you're young and starting out, try to connect and bring those different aspects into your mentorship network. So bring in the formal, the informal, the personal, the business, the mental health, the animal health, all the different aspects that a ranch needs, because it's vast. And it's not going to be one person. It's going to be a network of different people. And it's not always older people, it's peers, people who are dealing with the same things you are at the same time. So I think the ultimate point I'm trying to drive home is that a strong network of different skill sets to help you move through the dynamics of the vast issues facing ranching and facing agriculture is important, and what you should try to look for as you seek out mentors.
Totally. I want to repeat what you've been saying is that it's basically you're looking for a community and the support from a community. We all know the age-old adage of like, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a rancher or a farmer. Basically, you have that giant network of a banker, maybe a personal mentor, maybe you've got some friends and peers of your own age or a little bit older in your immediate area, or even in other provinces who've gone through a drought, have gone through a nasty disease outbreak, have dealt with something that you can bounce ideas off of and say, hey, I'm not in this alone, and I have someone to support me, or I have many people to support me on different sectors or different aspects.
Yeah. And I think the key thing, Bree, is having that network in place before the stresses hit. So you build that strong network so that because we all know we're going to hit stress at some point, we're going to hit some rough waters. So building up that network, not only in the rough times, but in the good times too. So you have that to fall back on when the stresses hit.
Totally. Having that support system, in the good times makes it much easier to call on that that support system in the bad times.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the committee had a couple more questions they were hoping to get your insight on. And we've kind of talked on like what types of people you would look for outside of your industry to be a mentor. We've mentioned financial management or like a banker. If you want to specify something more strategic, I guess. And then obviously like a more of a personal side. So if you're looking for a mentor to help you with your personal business, you're going to find someone who runs a similar business to you or has done above and beyond and where you want to aim for. Yeah. So when you're looking for a mentor outside of your industry, have you ever partnered with anyone outside your industry, and was there certain things that you looked for in them?
So you got to remember, back in my day, there wasn't a lot of formal mentorship, but starting off, and I'm going to pull on some of my personal past and history in terms of, while it wasn't formal mentorship, it was, now that I look back and spend some time thinking about how mentorship played a role in my career and in my businesses, it was there all along through the entire path. And it was there from outside and from inside. And I think that's the key dynamic that helped me build as a person and as, someone wanting to build a vast skill set in the industry. I look at, from the beginning times of in education when I always look at people like Dr. John McKinnon, who I did my master's with. And if anyone's spent much time in the animal science and agriculture world or cattle industry, they know Dr. John McKinnon is a nutritionist, and they know me as an economist, and they go, what? And I always say, John I'm the only grad student that came through John's program and knows nothing about nutrition. And he laughs and I laugh, but it's kind of true. And it was both of us buildings, connecting, kind of forced into an opportunity, not necessarily forced, presented an opportunity. And I said, this is out of my comfort zone. This is someone I wouldn't typically have guessed I would go down this path. And I did, and it opened up a ton of opportunities. So while he's still in the cattle sector, he was in a completely different field than I was pursuing, and one that I thought I have no interest in being. Like at that time was outright saying, I do not want to be a nutritionist. And here I was doing a master's degree with a nutritionist.
Yep.
Now, it wasn't a nutrition master's, but but it did. Don't limit yourself is what I've always said to people. Don't close off those opportunities, or just say, oh no, I don't want to do nutrition. So because it opened a, I mean, John McKinnon is one of my biggest mentors and influences in my career. So I think when you look at who you want to have as mentors, who those people are, when I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone, when I've looked at where I want to go, that's where I've got the most value. And it's usually, in terms of as starting a career, again, I look at some of my weaknesses and being, getting a job as the beef economist for Saskatchewan government. And I had directly come out of a master's program and was not an economist. Everyone is still to this day sometimes shocked or set aside that I don't have an economics degree. I don't. And so you're all of a sudden sink or swim. So what do? You go find some economists to learn from. And that kind of is the approach I've always, I guess I've stumbled into, is I've had these opportunities that have pushed my abilities, and I've had to seek out mentors to help me build my skill set because these opportunities presented themselves. They were wonderful opportunities, but I didn't necessarily have the skill set built. And it was sink or swim opportunities. And so you had to go and find. So I look at people like Bill Brown, who was at the University of Saskatchewan, who was an economist who I connected with, and Ian McNinch, who was with the Western Beef Development Center. These are pulling names from, now I'm dating myself, but these were experts in the field at the time who I went and, who provided great resource to me. And so that is how I built a skill set that I did not have. And I think that's really important to just not be, as someone who doesn't back down from a good challenge, when you get presented these opportunities, that's sometimes where you find these mentors and find people who can help you. And that goes back to my comment, 99, I've never had 100% of the time with me someone I've approached and said, I'm wondering if you could give me a few minutes. I need a little guidance. I need a little assistance. No one has ever said no. And it would take a very rare person to say, some have said maybe give me 5 minutes, give me, let's set up a different time, but no one ever says no. Most people, especially in agriculture, are very open to sharing their information, their ideas. And that's built my career really in terms of building expertise in the field and learning. And I think that's the other piece, is if you are truly a lifelong learner, mentorship is always in your world, because while I may be a mentor, I'm still a mentee. I still seek out the people who can help me every day. There is still a question that crosses my desk where I go, I have no clue. But you have to go out and find the answers and find the resource. And so you find the people who can help you with that. And that in itself is really mentorship. So it's played, from starting businesses and having no clue how we're going to run businesses out of a home office, to how are we going to, how am I going to get up in front of 200 people and speak? I have no expertise there. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this to, how can I complete a master's? I wasn't a really great student. I didn't have straight A's. How am I going to do this? All those things, those challenges present where you seek out mentorship and you seek out the people who can help you with that. So ultimately, it's been happening throughout my life. I could even go back into childhood. You can see where mentorship's been playing out, and you start to build on your skill set, and it's still going on today.
That's true. So talking about a mentor, what would make a good mentor in your mind?
I think a good mentor is someone who is willing to be open, transparent. Communication is key. I think this maybe is a better question for Bree. But like I said, I still am being mentored today by, not in formal capacity, but by people in this industry and people in agriculture, and as I continue to build my business. But I think you have to be open, you have to be transparent and willing to communicate, wanting to learn, because I
Mhm.
don't think mentors should come in and say, I know it all, here I am to share, because
Yeah.
I know, and I don't know if Bree's got this from me or not, but it's a two-way street. It's
Yeah.
a tell me what you need, ask me questions, I'll ask you questions, and this will be a learning as we go experience.
Oh,
And so I think that good mentors are willing to say, here I am, flaws and all, learn
yeah.
from my mistakes, hopefully. And hopefully I can share with you. And I'm going to share as much, I mean, proprietary and business stuff does come into play, and I'm fully cognizant of that. And I don't think anyone expects people to share private business stuff, but um, I think you have to be open and transparent about your failures, about what you've learned from your mistakes and your successes, because that's a really good mentor, in my opinion. Someone who's willing to sit down and say, "Here's where I've been,
Yep.
here's the mistakes I made. Hopefully you learn from mine." And we want to learn together. And it really is a lifelong, I say this, I've got a lifelong friend now in Bree. It's not going to end when the program comes to an end.
No.
It's a lifelong learning opportunity. And I think that is a really good mentor, someone who comes in and sees that it's not all about, I'm going to tell you what you can do to be successful in this business. I'm going to share my experiences with you. And hopefully I can answer some questions and connect you to a network that maybe you didn't have an opportunity to connect with before. And we can have some good communication, which will lead to some learning opportunities.
Totally. And I want to echo that. I think a good mentor is someone who has a good network and is a good networker, because, like you mentioned before, a mentor is not someone who says, I know everything from A to Z and here's how it goes. There's someone who goes, hey, I know ABC really well and I see you want to know EFG, but let me go talk to this person over there and let me connect you to that person over there. So I think being a networker or having a good network is key to being a good mentor.
I also think that triggered another thought for me, because having been involved in selections and selection committees for mentees and mentors and making the connection, I think it's really important to have someone who sees that piece, but who can say, you know, it's not just me who will be your mentor. I'm
Yeah.
going to open you up to a whole bunch of other mentors too. Like you said, I'm good at A, B, and C, but D and E, I've got people for you. And that, as we look at selection committees and selecting people who could be the best mentors,
Mhm.
it's people who can help recognize and connect with other aspects, because no one's good at everything.
Yeah.
No one can cover all the desirables of building a complete skill set. And so if you can find that person who can connect you with those others, who can, I always say, it's not just me mentoring people, it's not just the mentor we select for the person, it's who else can they connect you with to be your mentor as well. And so hopefully through these programs and through building your mentorship formally or informally, it opens up new mentors to you as well. And that's really a success, I would say.
Totally. And so we've talked about what makes a good mentor. So what makes a good mentee in your mind?
Free. No, I'm biased. Free. I think the first thing is recognizing the value of mentorship. That you need. So stepping forward and saying, I want to take part. That's a good mentee,
Yeah.
because you recognize the value of having mentorship. When I look back, I don't know if that word existed in the dictionary back in 19 blah 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 when I started, but we sure didn't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And if I recognized it, I probably would have got more value out of I can see now that it was happening,
Yeah.
but I would have probably captured more value from those people I was working with. I look back and think of some of the phenomenal professors I had who now are unfortunately not with us. And I would have maybe been a little more strategic about capturing their knowledge and their expertise and building on their learnings. And I think that that's the first number one critical success point, that now I see in young people, they recognize I need some mentorship. That would be extremely valuable to my business, to my career. So acknowledging that it can add some value is the first thing. I also think someone who's willing to step out of their comfort zone. And that's hard for me to do. So I'm saying, ooh, those people that aren't me, those are good mentees. Because I fully acknowledge it's not easy to step out of your comfort zone. But if you're willing to get in that uncomfortable area and push your limits, that's a good mentee, because you'll benefit even more from your mentor pushing you a little bit, saying, take this initiative, take that one, be a little aggressive, even if you're intimidated, even if you're a little shy, push forward and take advantage of these opportunities. So the two things I would say is recognizing that mentorship has value, because sometimes, when I look back, I didn't recognize that at a young age. And then being willing to step out of your comfort zone and really look at things that are maybe not, if I were to pick my mentor, I probably would pick someone that I can really relate to and who's in my comfort zone, in my area of expertise. Really, where I would get my most value is someone probably who isn't in my area of expertise and might be different than me and push me a little bit, right? And so those, I think, are some of the key features of really being a good mentee, being open-minded, open to challenges, open to outside of your comfort zone.
No, I think those are really awesome, and a good two key takeaways kind of thing, making sure you're open and that you're comfortable with getting outside your comfort zone, because you're not really going to grow if you stay inside your comfort zone. We know that all plants and animals grow a lot better when they get a little bit of push, even though they might not want it.
Yeah, and I'm the first to admit I don't want it, but we all benefit when we step out into that area where we're maybe not completely comfortable, and it really, that's where you find your key learnings and you really build, whether it's your business, your career, whatever you're wanting to do. You got to take that leap sometimes. I look back now and taking the leap into starting my own business and stepping out of my comfort zone there and finding mentors who could help me in that area was critical to my life and my career, and it wasn't comfortable at all. It was scary. But so that's key, I think, so to really being successful in mentorship.
No, that's awesome. So we've actually covered all the questions the committee had. So do you have any key takeaways before we turn it over to allowing the participants to shoot us over some questions?
I think the big thing is to spend a little time thinking about what mentorship could do for you and where you're already getting it and where you're not. Where you feel those are areas I don't think I'm really connected with someone who's adding value to my skill set. And so to me, that's an area where I might be able to seek out some mentorship opportunities. The other thing I would say is, after you take a critical look at yourself and kind of that's hard to do, but in the privacy of your own home, no one's asking you to share it. A critical look at what you need. Look at the opportunities of what's out there. There's tons. And so reach out to your associations, to your friends, to other youth. There's Facebook pages, there's all kinds of things where you can find out more, because as great as informal mentorship is, like I said in the beginning, formal mentorship opens some opportunities that maybe financially the mentors and mentees couldn't explore if the program didn't exist. So look at some of those programs, and there is a lot out there. So I would urge people to explore that. But really take that critical look at yourself and what you need, and be honest with yourself of where you'd like your areas to improve and where you could seek out some opportunities.
I think those are some really, really good takeaways. So thank you, Sandy, for imparting all your lovely knowledge on us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad you're able to join us. So before we finish this up, if there's any questions, please shoot them through the chat box to the participant named Bree, and I will read them out loud. And while I let people ruminate on some awesome questions, I just want to thank all those who participated and remind you that This webinar was recorded. It'll be on our website, www.cattlemen.bc.ca/coffeeshoptalks.htm in the near future, as well as on our YouTube channel at BCcattle. And if you can't find those, just give us a shout at the office at 1-877-688-2333, and I'd be happy to hook you up with those links. And again, I would like to thank our funders. So that is Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and the Government of BC through programs delivered by the Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC and the BC Cattlemen's Association. So it seems that I've got a question so far. So let me just take a few questions. This participant agrees with mentoring programs and has found it to be a big part of their organization called BC Young Farmers, to look at things differently and be able to work with people in other commodities. So obviously that is BC focused. Do you find that there's any outside, like in Saskatchewan, do you have any that are broad commodity and not just the beef industry?
Yes, yeah. There are more and more increasingly cross-commodity mentorship groups, which I think create an excellent dynamic. Saskatchewan has a couple that I can think of, young farmers. There's some youth initiatives. Canadian Western Agribition started a mentorship program. I know Alberta started some mentorship programs as well. And I think that cross-commodity brings such a unique dynamic, because so often within these formal mentorship programs, it creates the opportunity not only for you to connect with a mentor, but you connect with the group of mentees. And I know Cattlemen's Young Leaders does this. They get the mentees together once in a while. And I know some of the cross-commodity programs here in Saskatchewan do this. I'm assuming some in BC do as well, where they bring all the mentees together, and you get a chance to interact as mentees within the program, and that opens up to different commodities. But you find a lot of similarities in some of the mentorship opportunities and some of the areas where you're wanting to build skill sets, because they're very similar. So the learnings can be very similar, but yet it opens up a network that you would have had no connection with if you had not engaged in these programs. So I applaud these cross-commodity programs. I think they're excellent opportunities for young agriculture people to get involved in, because it opens up such a network that, like I said, you would have never had the opportunity to connect with. And so I think they are great to explore, because, and I know too, outside of your own commodity, you can build a lot of expertise. And sometimes we get a little bit of blinders on, we get a little narrow focused in our area of expertise. And so that creates tons of learnings and puts you in contact with other youth in agriculture, which at times can feel a little bit like you're off as a lone ship in the water, right? So anytime you can connect people together, whether it's different commodities or not, I think that's a good thing. So those programs, I think the more programs we have like that, the better.
Yeah, no, I agree. As someone who is currently in the Cattlemen's Young Leaders program, it's great to be able to connect with other young leaders, similar age, similar skill set, similar interest, but also trying different things and seeing that we actually aren't alone on our ship. We might be on separate ships as we're doing separate things, but we're still kind of all in the same ocean going towards the same end goal. So it's really nice to be able to connect with people who, yeah, they might be in the beef industry, but they might be a livestock photographer, or they might be a banker who focuses on the ranching sector. So we all know about beef, we just explain beef to different people in different ways. Yeah. And so it's nice to be able to connect in that sense.
Yeah. And I think too, I know, having worked with some of the cross commodity programs, not only the mentees get together, but I feel like the mentors and mentees, when we have those group learning sessions, as mentees, you benefit from others' mentors, right? So you start to connect. All of a sudden, there's a bit of, it sometimes feels like you're stealing my mentor, but that's in a good way. In a good way, you're benefiting from, because some of these programs have some really strong leaders in the agriculture sector who you would have never been able to connect with and you get the opportunity, while they might not be your mentor, they're someone else's mentor. And so the group gets to benefit from it all. And so both on the mentor and mentee side, I think cross commodity is great. Again, back to push yourself outside of your box, right? It's easy to stay in that where we know, I know beef, or I know wheat, or I know pulses. I'm going to stay in this box. Push yourself out a little bit, right? And you'll find you gain more than you lose by far. You gain a lot of expertise and a huge network. So those programs, yeah, the more getting involved in them is the best I can say, because there's so much learning opportunity and network to gain.
Yeah, no, I think that's an awesome takeaway, that it's much more than just you and the mentee and the mentor. It's a whole big picture too as well. So yeah, if there's no more questions, I think that would wrap up our tonight's webinar on mentorship. So thank you again, Sandy, for coming in all the way in from Saskatchewan for this. We greatly appreciate it. And like I said, thank you again to our funders, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, through Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC and BC Cattlemen's Association. And this concludes the 5th of 6 webinars. Our 6th webinar is happening on June 4th, so make sure you hop onto that one. It's financial management. And until then, thank you all and have a great night.